On the roof of the Himalayas, the air is so thin that every breath suddenly matters. Here on the Tibetan plateau, the first law of this land is the law of altitude. Where most cities run out of oxygen, Tibet is only just beginning. Above 4,000 meters, your heart beats faster, your steps slow down, and even a small village is a statement that people choose to live at the edge of breath. But there is a second Kyeter law. Across this frozen plateau lies a web of glaciers and sacred lakes known as the Water Tower of Asia. From here, water feeds rice fields and cities across China, India, Nepal, Bhutan, and Myanmar. The meltwater touches the lives of around 1.5 to 2 billion people downstream. But now, that water axis is thinning. What is really happening up here? In recent decades, winter ice, seasonal snow, and the rhythm of rivers have started to shift. New roads carve across mountain slopes. Tourists arrive in valleys that once held only wind and prayer flags. If this sacred water axis is slowly wearing down, what does that mean? Not just for this plateau, but for every place that receives its last drops? To understand how a high, empty plateau became both a water tower and a spiritual spine, we need to go back to the moment when two continents collided and raised the roof of the world out of the sea. Tens of millions of years ago, the Indian tectonic plate drifted northward, ramming into the Eurasian plate, slow in a human lifetime, but fast enough to redraw the map of a continent. When the two plates collided, neither agreed to sink. The floor of an ancient ocean crumpled, rock layers shoved upward. Over millions of years, those folds rose into the Himalayas, and the land behind them became a vast tabletop, the Tibetan Plateau. At an average height of more than 4,500 meters, this plateau bends warm, wet air currents from the Indian Ocean. When the summer monsoon slams into this wall of rock, part of the air cools and drops rain and snow. The rest spills over, dries out, and helps create deserts on the far side. The result: ice, snow, and glaciers pile up so thick that scientists call this region the planet's third pole after the Arctic and Antarctica. Right here, the first drops of water begin their long journey, gathering into major rivers, cutting through mountains, carving deep gorges, splitting into streams before spreading across floodplains thousands of kilometers away. For most of geological history, The plateau followed its own natural tempo, rising, eroding, freezing, thawing in long, slow cycles. But in just a few human generations, that tempo has begun to change, faster, less predictable. Now that the roof of the world has revealed its role as a third pole, it's time to follow the first streams heading east, where three great rivers run side by side through some of the deepest gorges on Earth. In eastern Tibet, three of Asia's great rivers run almost parallel, sometimes only a few dozen kilometers apart, slicing through some of the deepest gorges on the planet. This is the Three Rivers region, the headwaters of the Yangtze, the Mekong, and the Salween. On a map, those names are just blue lines. In reality, each is a corridor of water, culture, and history, flowing past mountains and across plateaus, touching the lives of hundreds of millions across East and Southeast Asia. In this part of Tibet, the landscape looks ripped into countless folds. River valleys squeeze between sheer rock walls, some sections deeper than the Grand Canyon. Villages and terraced fields cling to scraps of gentler ground on the slopes. Eastern Tibet becomes the hidden water backbone of half a continent. Every rainstorm, every spring melt, every small change in ice accumulation can bring floods earlier, stretch the dry season longer, or trigger sudden landslides. Along a river axis like this, the question is not just where does the water come from, but how many generations have already lived off this water spine? And how will we respond if its breathing pattern changes? From the valleys where three rivers cut through mountains, water isn't the only thing looking for a way through. For centuries, people clung to narrow paths along these rivers to trade for what they couldn't grow on the plateau. On lower slopes, Tibetans have brought brine up from the ground into small terraced pans, ancient salt fields dating back to kingdoms that once traded by horse and wooden boat. In the salt-making season, brine is scooped with wooden buckets, splashed across flat earth, then left for sun and wind. Day after day, a thin crust of white crystals forms. From these salt slopes, the road climbs higher. One famous stretch is the 72 turns, a chain of hairpins that looks like a shaky line drawn up the mountain. Seen from far away, the road is a thin white thread. Seen from inside a cab, every curve is a full turn of the steering wheel. Tires brushing the edge of the drop. For drivers, each trip feels like a ritual. Check the brakes, shift into low gear, Stop at pullouts to let the engine cool. For pilgrims on foot, these turns are where they feel what it means to exist between two forces: the river below, the mountain above, and themselves on a narrow ledge. Along stretches like this, the rock itself speaks. Many stones are stacked in piles, faces carved edge to edge with sacred mantras. Each stone is a prayer placed where everything is in motion. Over time, wind softens the carved edges, but new stones keep being added, the wall becoming a long, unbroken line of text running along the mountain's axis. Here, 3 layers stacked together: salt pulled from underground, roads clinging to the mountain's skin, and prayers resting inside stone. All ways humans negotiate with altitude, gravity, and water. Leaving the salt terraces behind, the road keeps climbing. Forests thin out, terraced fields fade, villages become fewer. At Dingqing, one of the last places where people live year-round on the plateau's edge, just over 4,000 meters, the air is already much thinner. At night, yellow light from a few dozen homes gathers into a tiny glow, surrounded by a huge ring of darkness. Dingqing looks like a thin, fragile breath of humanity on the chest of a stone giant. Above the town, the ranges turn deep red, sometimes flashing orange in late afternoon sun. Red mountains that feel like a gut-level sign. Beyond this point, everything gets thinner. From here, the road clings to sheer rock faces. Monasteries like Zizhu or Rongbuk appear, true monasteries at the edge of breath, where white, red, and yellow walls seem to grow straight out of the cliff. At around V500 meters, every step to the monastery courtyard sends your heartbeat racing. In simple rooms facing the cliff, monks wake before sunrise. The room holds a low wooden bed, a small table, a teapot, worn prayer books. Every morning, a blast of cold air rushes in, making the chest tighten. From the courtyard, this monk can see ice and snow on distant peaks, thicker after winter, thinner after summer. For someone living here, shifts in ice and water aren't lines on a chart, but something read with the eyes. That year the snow came early. That year the river ran lower. For those who live here, the law of altitude isn't a number on a map. It's a daily habit. Drink tea more slowly, walk more slowly, speak less, spend more time in silence and prayer. After long stretches of cutting wind, the plateau suddenly softens. In Nyingchi, altitude drops, forests appear, and the river widens. This is where the Indian Ocean monsoon hits Tibet's wall of rock, low enough for water to pool into a rare green pocket beneath snow-covered peaks. From above, the river valley looks like a green silk ribbon between walls of white-grey mountains. Along the riverbanks, villages and narrow fields spread between patches of damp forest. Early in spring, when snow begins to pull back, Nyingchi's peach blossom season arrives. The whole valley washes over in pale pink beneath peaks still white at the top. For a few brief weeks, the contrast between soft pink blossoms, deep green river, and cold white snow creates something unforgettable. For people here, peach blossom season isn't just pretty, it's a signal that the monsoon will return. The snow is melting on schedule, and there will be enough water for fields and forests. In years when blossoms come late, people pay closer attention to winters that drag on or rain that arrives behind schedule. Nyingchi is a rare breathing space, a place where viewers feel softer colors, yet still see the ice wall standing right behind, reminding that this land is only relaxing for a moment. As we push deeper into the alley region, trees disappear, only bare rock and wind-polished earth remain. Many call this the roof of the world, a high desert where water shows up only rarely, gathered into lakes and thin channels. The ground looks stripped to its bones. Ancient sediment has been cut by wind and water into cliffs and walls. The wind carries fine sand, making a dry, rasping sound completely different from Nyingchi's water and tree noise. In Java, wind and water have carved an almost surreal landscape, the Earth Forest. Stone pillars and earthen walls look like ruins of a vast city whose people have evaporated. As light changes, the Earth Forest sometimes looks like ancient architecture, sometimes like waves frozen in a desert. Inside this maze lie the remains of a once brilliant kingdom, Guge. City walls, caves, rooms, and watchtowers carved directly into soil and rock. Once a major Buddhist center, today mostly empty rooms, broken stairways, and walls with faint traces of paint. Walking through these ruins, It feels like history has started to merge into geology. The line between what people built and what weather carved is blurring away. Ali Jadaguge stands as a reminder that not every place is meant for humans to stay forever. Some regions where water is too scarce and wind too fierce can sand down even powerful religious centers until they survive only as faint patterns on stone. Beyond the Ali High Desert, Tibet's sacred axis reveals itself most clearly: Kailash and Manasarova. Kailash is not the tallest peak in the region, but its shape is almost unreal. 4 near square faces with snow stripes running down like giant carved lines. For millions from different faiths, this is not a mountain to conquer, but a cosmic axis where sky, earth, and water meet. At Kailash's feet lies Manasarova, a freshwater lake regarded as the most sacred in the region. From the slopes around Kailash, 4 great river systems begin: the Indus, Sutlej, Brahmaputra, and Karnali. For pilgrims, the way to climb this unclimbable mountain is to walk the Kora circuit, a little over 50 kilometers, crossing passes above sink 000 meters, usually taking 3 days. At that altitude, the laws of height and water stop being ideas and turn into something measured in heartbeats and footsteps. Imagine an elderly pilgrim setting out on their first Kora. The first steps are easy. The path around the lake, flat. Their breathing is steady. The mantra on their lips matching the rhythm of their feet. As the trail rises toward the high pass, the thinness of air becomes impossible to ignore. Every few dozen steps, they stop, brace hands on knees, and wait for their heartbeat to slow. Up here, the wind is cold and dry, cracking lips and scratching the throat, but each time they look up and see Kailash unchanged, many take that exhaustion as part of the prayer itself. For the viewer, the Kora is where you see 3 orbits spinning at once. The orbit of stone as the mountain, the orbit of water in rivers and lake, and the orbit of human footsteps around something they know they'll never stand on top of. Leaving Kailash behind, the journey pushes into Changtang, a vast high plateau at an average elevation of about 4,500 meters. A world of wind, low grass, salt lakes, and empty distances so long the eye struggles to find a place to rest. Here, permanent villages almost disappear. In their place are nomad camps, low tents pitched temporarily on flat ground, surrounded by herds of yak, sheep, and goats. Picture a nomad family getting ready to leave their spring camp. The adults walk out ahead, scanning the horizon, searching for areas where snow is melting sooner and green looks darker. They memorize places where gullies block wind, where tiny streams run. Once a direction is chosen, the camp comes apart. Tents, cookware, stoves, all packed onto yak backs. They pay attention to wind direction, cloud shapes, and the color of the horizon. For them, the real map isn't printed on paper. It lives in their memory of water points and grazing grounds. Near Namtso, one of the highest salt lakes on Earth at about 4,700 meters, dark blue water stretches to the horizon, mirroring a wall of white mountains. In years, when summer is hotter than usual and rain arrives late, grass near the shore yellows while it should still be mid-season. Families are forced to haul camp across barer, more remote sections of the plateau. Out beyond the nomad routes, in zones, the map labels no man's land. Tibetan antelope follow routes almost fixed, linking patches of grass and wind-sheltered valleys. Local herders say, if the snow comes late, the antelope come late. If the lakes stay frozen longer, they go the long way around. Their bodies respond quickly to every tiny change in water, ice, and wind. This family's migration route becomes a living map of the climate, where they can still stop which years they reach Namtso earlier or later, which years they're forced to travel farther than before. The journey comes back to where the laws of altitude and water land directly on the dinner table, Shigatse and the Bali valleys. Up here, still above Trey, 800 meters, where most crops struggle, barley becomes almost the only grain that can handle cold winds, thin soil, and a short growing season. In planting season, small terraced fields shift from grey-brown to light green. People plough with yak, dragging blades through narrow strips, water diverted from streams into thin channels just wet enough for roots. Every barley seed planted here is the result of thousands of years of trial and error. By autumn, fields turn deep gold. Barley is cut, tied into bundles, laid to dry on flat rooftops. The sound of threshing rings out, wooden sticks pounding bundles, grains rattling onto tarps. Flour from these grains becomes tsampa, roasted barley flour mixed with butter tea, one of the simplest, most enduring foods that helps Tibetans withstand wind, altitude, and long journeys. Not far away lies Gyance, with the Kumbum Stupa, a structure like a stone mandala. Layer upon layer rises upward, with hundreds of tiny rooms holding statues and murals. As you circle around Kumbum, then climb to higher tiers, you move in two ways at once, walking a circle and following a vertical axis. Everything we've seen, the cycle of water, the arc of mountains, the pilgrim's circuit, the nomad's migration, is condensed into one structure you can walk inside. A mandala the viewer can understand with their own feet. If this journey is a story, then the Yarlung Valley is often described as the opening chapter. From around the 7th to 9th century, this is where Tibet's first kings unified scattered valleys into a single kingdom. Legends say the royal line descended from the sky on a beam of light. Large stone burial mounds, palace ruins, and rock carvings still lie scattered around. On a low hill stands Yumbala Gang, one of the oldest structures in the region. A small building looking down over the valley and river. Here, kings embraced Buddhism, transforming from rulers into patrons of wisdom and ritual. Leaving Yarlung, the road continues toward Yamdrok, one of Tibet's most revered sacred lakes. Seen from above, Yamdrok has a complex shape, like a scorpion or water dragon, with long arms reaching across the plateau. The deep blue shifts with the light. For many Tibetans, Yamdrok is considered the soul of central Tibet. If the lake dried up, the region would lose its life force. Lamas come here to perform rituals, to read the lake's surface as if it were a mirror, searching for signs about the land's future. Locals remember the strange years, winters when lake ice never got thick enough, seasons when water fell and exposed wide mudflats. Those details live in stories passed between generations, an oral archive of changing weather. From a high pass above Yamdrok, an older person and a younger one might stand side by side, fingers turning prayer beads, both silently watching the lake. For the elder, this view has been there for decades. For the younger, it's both familiar landscape and a question about the future. Will these shorelines still look the same a few decades from now? Before dropping toward Lhasa, the journey touches one of the clearest viewpoints on the ceiling of the world, Potala Pass. At over 4,900 meters, you can see multiple Himalayan giants at once, Makalu, Lhotse, Cho Oyu, Shishapangma, and Everest, or as Tibetans call it, Chomolungma, Mother Goddess of the world. On a clear day, the southern horizon turns into a jagged wall of ice and rock. Prayer flags stretch from pole to pole, linking the narrow strip of asphalt to the frozen horizon of peaks. For many visitors, this is the first moment they truly see the highest mountain on Earth. For Tibetans, Chomolungma is not a mountain you climb, for the record, but a visible limit that reminds you not every peak is meant to provoke. When will we conquer it? The road drops into the Tingri Valley. Towering peaks, like Everest, still line the horizon, but life on the ground runs on a different rhythm, short seasons and working with animals. Tingri sits at around 4,200 meters. Water from a major river branch, together with seasonal melt, creates just enough window for a growing season of 3 to 4 months each year. In good years, the harvest is fuller. In odd years, that window shrinks to barely 3 months. On small plots, yak are indispensable partners, harnessed to plows, hauling loads, providing milk, butter, meat. A family with a strong yak herd stands a better chance of surviving winter. No yak means no harvest, no transport, no stable life. Meanwhile, trucks and tour buses roll by, carrying visitors to Everest viewpoints. These two layers of motion share Tingri's tight space, the looking up of outsiders and the looking down at the soil of those who stay. In Tingri, survival doesn't come from overcoming the range, but from cooperating with it, reading wind to sense storms, reading grass to know whether the herd has enough. Everest stands as a colossal backdrop, but in daily life, people focus on much smaller things, getting barley to ripen, keeping a yak herd strong. After valleys, deserts, lakes, and tiny villages, Lhasa appears as a point of convergence. At roughly 3,600 meters, the city is where much of Tibet's story comes together. Streets, monasteries, homes, markets. Trucks carrying barley, yak, and goods all find their way here. Water still comes from rivers, and snow melt from surrounding ranges. The heart of Lhasa is Jokang Temple and the path circling it, the Barkor. From early morning, pilgrims begin walking clockwise, one hand rolling prayer beads, the other spinning prayer wheels. In that flow, you might notice a pair from 2 generations, an older person in a heavy coat, prayer beads darkened by years. Beside them, a younger person walking slowly, occasionally offering a steadying arm. They share the same loop, but carry different memories. To someone from far away, Barkhor might look like a continuous human river circling a fixed point. Look closer. This loop doesn't differ from other circles across the journey. The Kora, the nomad routes, the ring of Kumbum. Here, Tibet still tells its story through a circle of walking. Beside the pilgrims, people work. Shopkeepers set out fabrics, beads, thankers, food vendors prepare bread and tea. Chanting from inside Jokhang bleeds into the calls of sellers. Economic life and spiritual life don't run on separate streets. The same lane is both marketplace and pilgrimage route. Seen from above, Barkhor forms imperfect concentric rings. Beyond that, Lhasa spreads with new districts and traffic, but zoom into the center, the Barkhor loop is still there, a tiny axis of rotation inside a moving city. Among all structures in Tibet's story, none is easier to recognize than the Potala Palace. This white and red mass rises on a hill in central Lhasa, looking like a giant stone ship anchored in the valley. To reach the higher levels, you climb a zigzagging chain of stone steps. Prayer flags hang from railings. The sound of footsteps echoes off stone. For locals, climbing to Potala isn't rare. It's a ritual repeated on holy days and key moments in life. From a balcony high above, Lhasa and the surrounding valley unfold like a 3-dimensional map. You can pick out the Barkhor loops, Jokhang's roof, small rivers curling along the valley's edge, and distant mountain ranges wrapping around everything. In this single view, everything scattered along the journey begins to gather. Inside Potala, corridors, stairways, chapels, and murals follow one after another like a vertical mandala, rising from lowest floors to uppermost rooms. Light slips through small windows. The smell of yak butter lamps, old wood, and incense mixes in the air. If you stand at a high Potala window late in the afternoon, as sun sinks and light slants across the valley, you can look back over the entire journey. Ranges leading toward Changtang, another direction toward Namtso, Kailash, Ali, lower valleys toward Yarlung, Shigatse, Nyingchi. Lhasa becomes a single knot where all lines meet. From outside, Potala looks like a fortress for eternity. From inside, it's a reminder that an entire civilization has been built along the edge of many different limits. At Potala, we've stood at a high window and looked back over the whole journey, from the third pole's ice cap, the headwaters of great rivers, salt fields, the Ali Guge High Desert, Kailash Manasarovar, Changtang Namtso, Bali Valleys, Yarlung Yamdrok, all the way to the Barkhor beneath our feet. Now, instead of going further, we pause to understand what all these spinning circles have been saying. Right at the beginning, we asked, high on the Himalayas, there is a plateau and sacred lakes that both nourish almost half of Asia and anchor its spiritual axis. But now, that water axis is thinning. What is really happening here? Throughout the journey, the tempo of Tibet's water and sacred axes showed up in many forms. At the third pole, glaciers as compressed water storage for a continent. In Nyingchi and around Yamdrok, locals talking about thinner winters and strange mudflats. Around Kailash, years of late snow, living in the memories of roadside shelter keepers. On Changtang, nomads redrawing routes when snow refused to melt or grass dried too soon. In the zones beyond human camps, even Tibetan antelope shifted their paths with the changing pattern of snow and ice. Put together, these fragments show that the sacred water axis is thinning, is something very concrete. It's about which days you can sow barley, which days you can move camp, which years wild animals show up later than before. The three human eyes, the monk at the edge of Breath Monastery, the pilgrim circling Kailash, and the nomad family on Changtang are three ways of living with the same axis. The monk stays in one place, reading ice and water through the monastery window. The pilgrim makes one full loop at the limit, testing their own limits around something they neither want nor need to conquer. The nomad keeps moving, drawing a new circle each year according to grass, water, and ice. From Dingqing to Changtang to Gawula, Tibet showed us a range of limits, places where you can truly stay. Bali Valleys, Shigatse, Tingri, Lhasa. Places you should visit, then leave. Kailash Kora, high passes. Places better left with nature in charge. No man's land, summit, ice fields. Every lasting balance requires the art of accepting limits, some places for living, some for passing through, some best respected from a distance. From all these layers, Tibet whispers three things. Identify the axis that keeps your world alive. R. Look honestly at how you treat your limits. San. Choose a pace you can return to again and again. If this journey made you feel closer to a place that once seemed impossibly far, or helped you see your own home with new eyes, like this video so others curious about invisible axes might discover it. Subscribe if you want to keep traveling to landscapes where nature, people, and limits are tightly woven. And if you'd like to share, drop a comment. Where I live, the most important invisible axis is high on the Himalayas. The sacred water axis is under pressure, but it still turns. The final question isn't whether that axis will keep spinning, but when you step away from this video, how will you walk differently along the invisible axes in your own life?